All right. Nobody's ever seen a pasture like this, right? This is one of my favorite pictures I took back in 2006. So, you know, these two weeds, dog fennel, tropical soda apple, are number one and two species, I feel, in broadleaf wise. But what is dog fennel doing to our production in the pasture? And this is solely in Bahia grass. We've looked at it so far. We did some work a few years ago. We looked at different densities of dog fennel in the field and tried to figure out how much Bahia grass production are we losing if we leave the dog fennel there. So we went out and established these plots, and these orange bars represent no dog fennel. The blue bars represent a low density of 25% or less. The yellow bars represent around 50% coverage, and then the high bars represent 75% or more coverage of dog fennel. All right, so in May, even in May, with the low density, we're seeing about an 80% reduction in biomass. That amazed me. I wasn't expecting that. I think what's going on there is we were so dry in that month, if you had anything out there, it was going to impact your Bahia grass performance. Okay. We got to June, you see our low density starts to pick up. It's about 50% of our plots with no dog fennel in them, but the other medium and high density are still up around 80% reduction. As we go through the growing season, we see the same trends throughout the whole growing season. If you get out to October, the low density does eventually end up reaching the same amount of biomass as the plots with no dog fennel. So I think what I have told people is if you have the low density, you don't have to jump out there and spray like yesterday. But if you have 50% or greater dog fennel coverage in the pasture, it's best to get out there as early as you can to reduce the amount of forage that's lost. All right, so how do we control dog fennel? Well, if you remember when Forefront came out, which was Milestone T4D, got replaced by Grazing, which is a good thing because they actually decreased the price. One of the few times that it's ever happened. Get a new herbicide and they decrease the price on it. So that was a good thing. Well, we quickly learned that even with that little bit of T4D in it, at the rates we were recommending at 24 ounces or 1/2 pints, it's not going to control very tall dog fennel. But if we bump that rate up to the max rate, well, we can get it. Okay, so that was good. We thought, well, maybe we got something. Maybe we can get by with that. We compare that to our standard Weed Master, pretty similar. And then, again, Cadillac product for dog fennel control, obviously very good. All right, so this was 30-inch dog fennel. What do you do in a situation like this? Granted, that last picture wasn't 42-inch dog fennel, but this is the data for 42-inch dog fennel. So a difference of 12 inches of growth in dog fennel, Grazing next at both rates, we're only getting control in the 60s. So a difference of 12 inches made the control go from about 95% with that rate, 2.1 pints of Grazing XHL, from 95 to 66. That's pretty impressive. Or depressing, however you want to look at it. So we knew pretty quickly we were going to have to add something to Grazing XHL. We looked at Pasture Guard HL, Weed Master, and 2,4-D at 1/2, 2, and 3 pints per acre respectively. And we brought that control of dog fennel up from the 60s up to the upper 80s, lower 90s. It's a pretty satisfactory control. So our recommendations for dog fennel, if they're less than 36 inches tall, 2,4-D, 3 to 4 pints per acre, Weed Master, 3 pints per acre, and 1 pint per acre of Pasture Guard, if that's the product that you choose. If you're above 36 inches, 4 pints per acre of weed master, I think is the minimum, and then 1.5 pints per acre of pasture guard. Yes, you pay for pasture guard, but the variability control of pasture guard is so much lower than with any other product I've looked at. All right. Tropical soda apple. 2 products that we use, Milestone for limpo grass as well as chaparral for limpo grass. The Milestone rate's 5 to 7 ounces. The chaparral rate would be 2.5 to 3 ounces per acre. I meant to put chaparral on this slide too, so sorry about that. Grazing Next HL, it's 24 ounces per acre is usually the standard rate. Can be applied anytime unless you know frost is going to happen. If you know frost is going to happen, I recommend you not apply it until the plants are actively growing again. I did put chaparral in there. Don't even know my own slides. It's terrible. All right. For spot spraying, if you're using Milestone, which a lot of people do instead of Grazing Next, 3 teaspoons per gallon is all you need. It doesn't take much Milestone, okay, in a backpack sprayer. If you're using Grazing Next, then 1 ounce per gallon is usually sufficient, but you have to make sure you spray the entire plant or it's not going to completely control it. And this slide will demonstrate that. My colleague in Gainesville, Jay Farrell, put this work together. And this is the rate we recommend, 0.11%, which is 3 teaspoons per gallon. If you only spray half the plant, you get about 50% control. If you spray the entire plant, you get 90% control. I hear a lot of people complaining that Milestone isn't working like it used to. You know, they're wondering whether the plants are resistant already. And I have to wonder if it's the application itself is being a problem more than the herbicide. But it's something we need to think about. Remedy is a little bit more forgiving. If you don't spray the entire plant, you don't get quite 80% control, but it's not 50% control either. Okay? Now, how many people have seen the soda apple beetle in the field? I hope everybody has. I mean, it's pretty well everywhere. This was actually first released back in 2003 in Polk County, and then there have been multiple releases throughout the state, you know, from basically here all the way up to Gainesville. And what they found is once you get above I-4, the beetle doesn't overwinter very well. So most of the beetles are still stayed active in South Florida. All right. So this is the kind of damage you would expect. A lot of holes in the leaves, reducing the amounts of leaf tissue. Which actually ends up negatively affecting the plant itself. So the blue bars are plants with the beetles on them. The orange bars are plants without beetles. And you see about a 20% reduction in soda apple height, a 25 to 30% reduction in plant diameter, and about a 70% reduction in the amount of fruit that are produced. So that's pretty good. I mean, that's what we're after, is getting that seed bank depleted over the long term. So that is exciting. Now, what have we noticed with soda apple in the past year? Anybody? Increased or decreased? Increased, definitely. So a lot of people are saying, well, where are the soda apple beetles? Why aren't they working anymore? Okay. When the soda apple beetles were released, the soda apple population was pretty high. This last winter was pretty mild. I think we only had 1 frost event at Onan, maybe. So the soda apple basically lived throughout the whole year. And then any seedlings that came up in November survived the winter months. And then, boom, we get all the rain that we got this spring, which is above normal. And the soda apple just kept growing and growing and growing. So as the soda apple population crashed in the past, the beetles population began to crash as well. Now the soda apple populations are ramping up, we should see the beetle populations begin to ramp up as well. Okay, so the beetles are going to follow the soda apple. Soda apple goes down, the beetles are going to go down, soda apple goes up in population, the beetles are going to go up in population. All right, any questions on that? Anything burning? Not yet.
How long does that beetle live?
How long does the beetle live? I'm not sure. I don't remember that. It's been so long since we did that work.
But they're still around?
They're still around. Absolutely. The other bad thing about the beetle is they go through a period of overwintering where they become inactive about October, early November, and overwinter in the soil, and they emerge in March and April. So if we don't have a frost during the winter months, and the soda apple continues to grow, they're not going to have any agent that's really attacking them.
Brent, it's been said, and I've watched it in different pastures, that renovation of pastures at times can increase soda apple population. And I've seen that in some pastures, some it doesn't seem to affect. Is there anything to that, as far as irrigating, chalk, anything like that, certain times of year?
I think any time that, did everybody hear the question first? Okay. I think any time that you open up the soil and decrease the plant canopy, you increase the chance of getting soda apples to germinate. Now, I typically see more germination of soda apple like October, November, December than I do the summer months. Now, does it happen in the summer months? Absolutely. But if we have a, quote, normal summer and we have a lot of rain, the soda apple do germinate, and there's a lot of water around, they're not going to survive. They don't like wet feet for extended periods, especially when they're not small. Now, if they're already this tall, they'll probably survive that. So, does that make sense?
Yes.
Any other questions?
The other controls, deals with the herbicide, I assume all those had surfactant and all those different formulations.
Yeah, I didn't tell anybody that. Unless I state otherwise, every herbicide that we apply has a non-ionic surfactant mixed in with it.
That's a big deal. Because some people are saying don't bother with it.
For broadleaf herbicides, I believe you need some type of surfactant, and usually a non-ionic is sufficient. Basically, all we're doing is trying to keep the spray droplets from bouncing off the leaves. We want them to hit and spread. Without a surfactant, a lot of times they hit and bounce. So that's the main reason. Now, when we get into some of the waxy species like wax myrtle or pawpaw or even blackberry, we might change that surfactant to methylated seed oil or MSO or even a crop oil. And that'll help dissolve the waxes on the leaf to get the herbicide into the leaf itself. I'm sorry? What does mowing do to which? Soda apple or dog? Soda apple? Mowing basically just makes the plant branch out more. So if you mow it and just leave it alone, normally you'll get a wider plant in the long term if you don't do anything else to it. And it would decrease fruit production, but not by a lot. Any other questions?
How much control have you seen, residual control have you seen with milestone?
I love that question. How much residual control have I seen with the milestone? Well, back when this was first being investigated, we were looking at 6 to 12 months, depending on the rate. About 6 months with 5 ounces, 12 months with 7. Since that time, I feel fortunate if we get 4. And actually, there's a study that we're doing, and then several other states are doing right now, looking at residual control with this, just on all the weed species. Regardless, it doesn't matter, whether it's soda apple or pigweed or goat weed or whatever. And I was like, okay, I think you're wasting my time, but I'll put it out. And what we found, not only here, but also in Georgia, Alabama, and North Carolina, and it does happen all the time, but we're seeing a reduction in the amount of weeds coming back into plots by about 70%. So it's not controlling all of them, but if you compare it side by side with 2,4-D, it looks impressive. So I tell people not to bank on residual activity. At least it wouldn't be my selling point if I were selling Grazing X. But if you do get residual activity, I say count your blessings.
So is Milestone worth the extra money?
If I were going to spray something that had Milestone in it, it would either be Grazing X or Shackle. Milestone by itself is more expensive than either two of those products. And you get more weed control.
And it's increased the residual. We sprayed Milestone on the field, and 7 months later, 6 months later, it looked like a fertilizer.
That's not what I like to
Do you
do.
broadcast it, Alex, or you just broadcast it?
Broadcast spray, actually. I've done it 2 years in a row, and it's still, we haven't had any control.
Now my question there, Alex, would be what is the grass stand like? Is there a lot of empty voids in it? Or,
Yeah, it's a pretty heavily grazed pasture.
Yeah.
It's called ahead, but ironic, the soda apple actually was heavier in the heavy stands in the hay versus the short stands. So our theory was maybe we just didn't get good coverage in that thick hay and we did in the short hay.
could be. Another thing that happens too is that the Milestone actually stays in that grass because it's not metabolized. So until that grass dies back, anything that is in that grass doesn't get released until it decays. So
So would it be worth spraying Milestone and going in the bush hog?
that's a good question. I don't think anybody's ever looked at that. Something to ponder. I think that would double your cost for sure.
It would.
I mean, that's
Makes
the
that
only
get some control.
drawback. Somebody else have a question?
On all your graphs, we're not getting 100% on none of this. Why aren't we getting 100% kill on all this?
Why are we not getting 100% kill? Well, I rarely get 100% kill. If I'm in the 90s, I'm pretty happy. So are you not getting in the 90s either?
Why aren't we? That's the question. Why aren't we getting 100% kill at least for 12 months?
Well, you're not going to get 100% kill for 12 months.
But why?
But why? I think it's in Genesis. Honestly. And no, I mean, because we don't have anything that would have that length of residual to keep weeds from coming back in. Those days are gone. EPA is not going to allow something that's going to have that much soil residual to exist in the market anymore. So, can we help ourselves by getting longer weed control? I think we can through management of our pastures. Better fertility, better grazing management, and so on and so forth. I wouldn't go out with a herbicide and ever expect 100% weed control for more than 12 months, or even 10 months for that matter. It's just not going to happen. Not with our environment. You don't like my answer at all, do you?
Well, I mean, you know, my fertilizer program is very heavy, very heavy. My grading program is very heavy. And, my spot grading is very strict. And right now, I've got more weeds than I had when I first started, a year and a half ago. And it's new coming weeds, I don't even know what they are. I had a very low density of kiwi. I've got one factor that's getting covered.
I'm gonna talk about that one a little bit as well.
Is that the white room? Does that match your white room or?
No, tea-weed is, Sidus species.
They look similar?
I think it's different, Alex, I looked
Not
at it in
quite.
the picture here. Yeah, it's different. Yeah.
But there's some of both out in the field, and we can look at it later. So we can compare the two. But, tea-weed's hard. It is very hard to control.
I think it's crazy, it looks like a fertilizer.
Yeah. What'd you spray it with?
Crazy.
I think you Grazing next on that piece, didn't you? You have Grazing. Yeah.
It's marginally okay. Every once in a while, I feel like I get lucky with Grazing Next and control tea-weed pretty well, and then other times I'll spray Grazing Next and, it looks okay,
What
but not
would you
great.
suggest? And is it
Let me get to
different?
that slide in a little bit. Is that good?
Yeah.
Okay. Any questions on dog fennel or soda apple before I go on? Okay.
Yes, I do have a question. If you had just really tall, dog kennel, would you be better off to mow that down and let it just start coming back a little bit and spray it where you got all the way down to the ground, or is it just as well to spray it when it's, say, 42 inches high?
Yeah. I think if you're 42 inches high, 5 feet tall, somewhere in that range, I would spray it.
Spray it.
I would. If you're talking about 10 to 12 feet tall dog fennel, then I would mow it and come back next spring.
All right, if you sprayed it, how long should you wait to mow it? I mean, you need it to be totally dead before you.
So once you spray it, you want to knock down the
Yeah,
stalks,
you're gonna
basically.
have baby calves running around in that
Yeah.
mess. You know,
I would give it a good 4 to 6 weeks after spraying. Unless you spray something like Pasture Guard, it's gonna be a little bit quicker. But if you try to go the cheap route and use the full rate of Weed Master, it's gonna take every bit of 5 weeks to get it.
I've been told that July is an excellent time to kill a dog kennel, no matter how it, everything do that.
If you use the right herbicide,
It'd pretty well be food, but, you know, it's just what I've heard.
Yeah,
really.
like August, I think,
Yeah,
August,
July, yeah.
like what you,
I think it all comes down to timing. I mean, really, the height, sure, I can go out in August and find some pastures that dog kennels only this tall. But a lot of them, they're over my head already. So I think it all depends on timing.
so it doesn't matter if the dog kennel is in a real growthy period, it's compared to its over and kind of doing all it's gonna do. I mean, it's not gonna sort that spray anymore, the fact that it's,
Not sure I understand it.
Because it's growing more than what
because
you
it's
think.
growing
that
and
way.
it's not gonna absorb that spray anymore because it's in its very growthy period, like it would be in July or August,
Right.
compared to October.
Right. So I think you get better control in July and August than you would in October, for sure. Regardless of height. because-
Or the fact of how fast it's growing, or
Right.
that it's more or less conforming as far as phenols.
Right. Yes, if I was gonna spray, if I was gonna choose between spraying a soda apple or mowing it, I would spray it and leave the mower parked. Because the last thing you wanna do is spread a bunch of seed by mowing the plants and get the fruit scattered. But if you spray the plant and all the fruits drop where that plant has been sprayed, then hopefully the residual that's around that plant is gonna keep those seeds from reestablishing new plants for a little bit. Does that make sense?
And when do you recommend spraying them?
When do you recommend spraying soda apple? Before they set fruit is best, definitely. So when they're flowering, is the best time.
Which most of the time is like from December through March, April, what they say, I mean,
All year round, it seems like.
yeah, all year round, but they say that's the most damage, but I don't know, they're against that.
Yeah. I mean, basically if you see a plant in the field and you know it hasn't flowered yet, I would go ahead and spray it, just to keep those more fruits from developing. Anything else?
Where did the attitude of soda apple come from?
Where did the soda apple come from? I blame it on the Brazilians. South America. So, everything, seems like I give my Brazilian colleagues a hard time about this. Everything that comes from Brazil is invasive. Brazilian pepper, chocolate soda apple. Yeah. Dennis?
You said that the residual activity of the milestone actually comes with it. Like when you spray a plant and some of the spray gets on the grass, even though it's on it won't become active in the soil until the grass decays. Is that right? Correct?
Right. So if you went out in the field and you had a bare spot and you had grass covered plot, and you sprayed milestone in this part and milestone in this part, and you knew you had soda apple seeds in both parts, you get more residual activity over here because the milestone is actually hitting the soil versus over here because it's being tied up in the grass. And once that grass decays and releases the milestone, then you get the milestone into the soil next.
How long will it sit there? The chemical itself sit there?
Oh, I don't remember the half-life of it. It's not very long. And like I said, I'd expect somewhere between 4 to 12 months, depending on the environment. High temperature, high moisture is going to reduce the amount of residual activity you'll have.
So you're saying spray the food?
Yeah.
So if we went in and done a burn on the pasture first, reduced the grass and everything, then applied the chemical application, would have a better kill rate?
As long as if you had any soda apple plants in that pasture before you burned it, had already started regrowing so you could get coverage on those plants. So by the time the soda apple gets tall enough where you can apply the milestone or grazing it, your grass is already coming back. So I don't know that that's going to be a viable option. Now, you'll probably get more herbicide to the soil that way, so that might help. Never looked at that. You guys are giving me all kinds of good ideas too.
Wouldn't the ash from the burn hit the herbicide?
Would the ash from the burn? Possibly. Possibly. Depends if you have a rainfall event between burning and then application. If you get that, then you get the ash washed into the soil. Good questions. Anything else you want to drill me on today?